And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk. Spartans Stadium, Michigan State loses 38-7 to Ohio State. We've seen Michigan State get blown out by Ohio State a lot in recent years. This was a little different flavor. I mean, we've seen walkovers that were like 49-0 at halftime, game over, like just TKO, Mike Tyson versus Marvis Frazier style, 21-0 before you even sit down type of games. That was not this case, but it's 38-7. Am I crazy to think that Michigan State played pretty good football tonight for like 7 or 8 rounds out of 15? Or something like that. They won a few rounds.
This is like a repeat of the 2010 Ohio State VCast where Michigan State had a pretty good team. I think it was 2010. I'm not sure. But they had a good team that they got blown out. And I think not 2010. I'm sorry, 2017 maybe. One of those late D'Antonio era teams that really had a pretty good defense.
Was it the 23-6 game when it was close for a long time and their punter kept punting Michigan State down to the 1 yard line?
Yeah, I believe,
but State was like in it and hanging.
I was down there by myself, and we had one of these. I did a phone-in VCast with you, and it was like one of these things where Michigan State, like they got fourth and 2, and they couldn't convert, or 4th and 5 or whatever. They had a holding penalty here, or a missed
ended up 23-6. Do you remember the punting that day?
Yeah.
Like Michigan State kept making Ohio State punt, which was a great accomplishment, and that dude he pinned Michigan State inside the 5 like 5 or 6 times.
That was the best punting performance I've ever seen. But what I'm saying,
23-6 or something.
What I'm saying with this game is Michigan State for 2 quarters at least was very competitive, and so like everyone's like, well,
that's progress. I'm sorry against these guys.
But you look at let's start with like the Aidan Chiles, like I wrote about a minute ago. But the Aidan Chiles that played that first half, that had a respectable run game.
Yeah.
He was able to function at a high level and make throws. And they were, when Jerron Glover was open, Jack Velling was open. They did some good things, and they ran the ball respectably. When the things spiraled out of control, then that's where Aidan Chiles I think got in trouble, because he is not at that point, and there's not many quarterbacks that are, where he can carry an entire team by himself, and you can't expect that from him. So if Michigan State's on schedule like they were for much of the first half, and you have a limited number of 3rd and 13s, 3rd and 10 type plays, Aidan Chiles can be just fine. He was a very good version of himself. The version that we saw in the first half, when he had a run game that was working, is a version that can win a lot of football games. The problem for Michigan State, and I don't understand if there's any overreaction out there right now, because we've been talking about all year, all offseason, every time we've talked about the schedule, we've been talking about the brutal section of the schedule for Michigan State where they were playing against teams that weren't in their peer group, that were above them, and they were punching up, and that they were going to get their teeth knocked in, and that they had to win games against teams in their peer group. Ohio State, not in their peer group. Not yet. And we saw this with the D'Antonio era, where they had to have a build to get to that point. It takes a long time, and it takes the right mix of guys, and it takes the right willpower and all that to get and compete with these type of teams. And I think Michigan State can compete to a certain degree with some of those teams that are thought to be better than they are. But not like this Ohio State team, and I kind of think maybe not that Oregon team that's coming up. These high-powered offenses, Michigan State's not built right now with what they do to compete with those type of teams. But once they get into teams, I think that they can stop the run. I believe that they can stop the run. And once they get into teams like Michigan and Iowa, that don't have the complete package from top to bottom on offense, then I think Michigan State's going to be more competitive. But you want to see things in games like this, even though you know it's going to be a loss. You want to see things that Michigan State can take from this game and build on in the next. Take from those games and keep on building as they move forward into more winnable games. And I saw enough in this game, enough progress in some areas where I think, Aidan Chiles, if he continues on this vein, he's going to be fine. If he continues to stay positive, if he has the receivers to catch the ball, and he gets good pass blocking, which he did at times tonight, I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think Michigan State, on my scorecard, lost this game like 41-20. Does that make any sense?
No, I mean,
I understand why they went for it, because they knew that they couldn't win this game kicking field goals. But they drove to get 3 points.
But you know what? They could have got. Honestly, I really think that Aidan Chiles on that one, he could have got that first down if he would have been lower and he would have
on
that fourth down. He was up too high on that. The blocking was very low, and if you're low on that and you follow your blocking and you really push low, you can't end up as high as he was.
Did he go right behind the center, because they put a zero shade right in the center, and they stood up Tanner Miller, and then zero Cody Simon came over the top.
It wasn't just, in my opinion, and, and if I'm wrong on this, give me some absolution based on the fact that it was Peacock on TV, and they were about 5 plays behind.
Well, not for these people, but for us.
But for us in the press box, because it was Peacock, it was about 5 plays behind, like real time.
Yeah, getting replays here is a struggle.
So but my initial impression watching that play and seeing the replay quick while I'm trying to watch something else is that I felt like that all the blocking was really low on that, and I felt like he was standing straight up. I don't know if Tanner Miller was stood up. If he was, that would make sense.
Well, I just didn't know which direction he went. Ohio State reduced to a double eagle, and the 3 guys that were over the guard center guards, they submarined old-fashioned football, took them low, and then the linebacker came over and met someone high. So I didn't know if Chiles went straight up the middle or if he tried to go off of one. I'm not sure. You guys know. You've seen it. But anyway, my point is they drove well enough there to get a field goal. They didn't get it, but Michigan State ends up with 7 points tonight. Put another 3 on there, you get 10. Chiles, gets a face mask fumble.
Not worried about that one.
Velling, gets the fumble. That's enough offense there to get another couple. That's what I mean. They scored 20 points. It didn't end up with 20 points on the scoreboard. But if I'm looking at Michigan State and the caliber of football that they played, this is kind of a 40-20 type of game. Now, Ohio State could have scored more in the second half if they wanted to, if they needed to. But still, first half, Velling with the fumble, Chiles with the fumble, which should have been erased if they'd seen face mask. I don't want to sound like Joe Ann Arbor here or anything like that.
That was obvious. And then you look at the things that get me is that the face mask fumble, I get that. The thing that bothers me is, Jack Velling, it's a fundamental thing where it's like
he was holding that ball loose.
It was way chicken wing. It was way chicken wing. So that's something he's been around way too long to do that.
Yes.
And that's the case of when they talk about doing your 111 or not wearing a cape.
Yeah.
He was trying to wear a cape on that.
Should have been first and goal to 10.
So he gets the fumble on that. Meanwhile, on the other side of the football, Travion Henderson, I'm sorry, he has what looks to be a fumble, what's called a fumble initially, and I still kind of think it was. I don't know.
At the Ohio State 20-yard line.
Yeah, at the Ohio State 20-yard line. He gets that, and he's his forearm is ruled down.
His back of his wrist.
So you're looking at
technicality.
But you're looking at plays like that, and then you're looking at the one at the Malik Spencer. The should have been interception in the end zone. Yep. So you get that interception in the end zone, and then guess what? That's that takes away an entire touchdown.
It's at least 13 points, maybe 21 points, depending on whether Michigan State kicks field goals on those or not. The shame of that is that wrist fumble is reviewable and the face mask is not.
Right.
So they don't see either of them correctly
in
live action, but one gets overturned.
There's another fumble somewhere around in there that
is this the Maize and Blue
V-cast? It's not because.
Was the field too crowned? Was the crown too much?
Because it's like it is a game of inches. Like Mark D'Antonio, name up in the Ring of Honor, well deserved. But you used to always say it's a game of inches, and it certainly was tonight. There are a couple of those near sacks. It felt like Michigan State couldn't quite get home, and that's another reason why they weren't competitive in this game, because the pressure that's been a component of Michigan State's defense for the first 4 weeks of the season. They just could not get home as much as they needed to tonight.
I said in the V-cast they wouldn't be able to because they get rid of it. They shoot it out quickly.
I understand.
And Will Howard's not really a pocket guy. He's a point guard. They run such good stuff, and you have to honor everything sideline to sideline. And when they pull linemen, those running backs are so great. And Michigan State did a good job containing those running backs. Those running backs should be in the NFL playing tomorrow. Those are NFL guys right now. So you have to do so much to defend all those things sideline to sideline and stay home because they might pull it out and RPO it out here. That they get it out so quickly, and you have to honor all those things. It's just so hard to get a pocket pressure on them. They've only given up 3 sacks all year.
There were a couple times where Michigan State got close.
Got close.
And Joe Rossi, he's not going to tell his guys that.
And they hit him and hurt him once.
Right, they did. But there was a couple of times where they could have done a little bit more. Maybe a technique was a little bit better. There's a couple, maybe, if I'm Joe Ann Arbor, I'd be talking about the holding calls that weren't called holding, because there were a few of those. But this is a tough deal. Michigan State faced the best offensive line that they faced. Ohio State is multiple. They do so many things well.
Man, their opening drive. Woo!
Yeah, and to me, I'm thinking back to because obviously you've been around longer than I have, but I was around for the entire D'Antonio era and part of the John L. Smith era, and I'm thinking back of when you talk about really getting erased, like teams that you have no chance, and I'm thinking of like domination at the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Michigan State didn't get the pressure that they wanted to as a defensive line, but they weren't getting pushed off the ball 7 yards down the field. Offensive line, even though they had a bunch of young guys out there tonight, with Rakeem Johnson starting at left tackle.
True freshman left tackle. When's last time? Has that ever happened? True freshman left tackle.
I can't remember.
Against Ohio State, good luck. And Rakeem's coming in from Idaho. What did he? And he's out here against JT Tuamala guy, number 44. Hello.
Yeah,
and he wasn't bad. He gave up a bull rush for a sack once, but he hung in there.
He's a guy that's undersized too, but he's a wrestler.
6'3",
super competitive, super athletic, and the fact that they even had the faith to put him in there. I understand the depth isn't great on the offensive line, but for them to put him in there in that situation, that tells you a lot about what they think about the future. But back to my original point, and I'm kind of rambling because I'm not feeling the best right now, but my original point was Michigan State did not get manhandled at the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. So like when Michigan State coaches go back and they break down this film, there's going to be a lot of positive moments that they can take away from this, but there's going to also be a lot of missed opportunities in their mind, that they just have to be better at.
They won a lot of plays, and that's encouraging. This is what I was going to say earlier. Velling fumbles it at the 10. That's on him. Credit to Ohio State causing a fumble there. But if you get a field goal there, I'm not even talking touchdown, but it's first and goal at the 10. He doesn't fumble there. If the Chiles face mask gets called, then it's first and goal at, 8 or something like that. Just those two plays, and let's, even if you kick a field goal on the opening drive, intercept that one that's in your hands. I'm not saying you win this game, but I'm saying if you do that, if you play that football in the first half, you are leading against a lot of teams in the country, probably everybody outside of the top 15. If you play the way Michigan State played in the first half tonight, and Velling doesn't fumble, and they call the face mask, and Spencer intercepts that ball, they are leading Iowa at halftime. They might be leading Michigan at halftime if they play like that without those errors. I'm not saying they can sustain it for 4 quarters, but that's why I came away at halftime. They're down 24-7. I'm like, man, they played some good football in that half. I know what Jonathan Smith's talking about when he says it's not like they were overwhelmed. There's a lot of plays that'll look good on film when they go back over it. There's a lot of players that are going to grade out well. That doesn't mean anything. They lost 38-7. It's a loss. It's 3-2. But sometimes I don't agree with you are what your record says you are. Right now, Michigan State is a 3-2. But that looks pretty good. If they can harness a lot of that and hone it up a little bit, they're going to jump up and beat somebody.
Yeah, but here's the thing: who expected them to win this game?
Oh, nobody.
Right.
Number 3 team in the country.
So anybody that's complaining about this, you got to take the things that you can build on and try to build on them on this. And I think coming off that game at Boston College, it was an emotional, tough game, and it was late at night. And it's.
And they didn't practice on Sunday. Their first day of practice this week was Tuesday, which was strange.
And these guys were tired, man. These guys were tired this week. They put in a lot of. Now they got to cycle up and do it again because they've got a Friday night game at Oregon that might be, where they might be doing some good things as well. But they've got to be able to run the football, and I really think for them to take that next step, take a little bit of pressure off the defense. Make sure there's not near as much on Child's plate. They've got to run the football with some consistency. And
it was better tonight.
It was. But
Michigan State's tailbacks averaged 4.1 yards per carry tonight. But like you said, by halftime, that's out of the game. You can't do that anymore.
Right.
But it was enough to get the play action going. And I said coming into the game, I wanted to see if Michigan State could spring receivers open like they did in the first 4 games. Okay, can you do that against Ohio State? And they had receivers open again.
Jerron Glover was they had.
Ohio
State did a nice job of covering up Montorie Foster. They did a nice job on him, but that left an opening for Jerron Glover. And Michigan State, they do a nice job of getting receivers open, almost like for those high school football fans. I'm thinking of like that Lowell veer back in the day with Keith Nickel.
The one-back veer.
One back, and then you had 2 receiver routes combinations all the time, and you're like, how is this receiver going to be this wide open every single time? Yeah. But there's always one, and I don't. I'm just saying that's what I feel like when I'm watching these guys out here. The route combinations they don't seem complex, but there always seems to be one guy open.
Yes.
And if you give Childs a manageable palette, and you've got to have some run credibility, then I think this offense can be very effective. And I felt bad for Jack Velling tonight because I think he's coming on. I think the tight end position is coming on. We saw Parachek make some good plays tonight. Isaiah Johnson. I know receiver depth isn't great, but he continues to make 1 or 2 plays every week. Nick Marsh didn't play a lot tonight, and that's not the reason they lost, but you see other receivers making plays. I think.
And Marsh had that catch on that 20-yard out for the right hash to the left. That was an NFL throw.
Exactly.
That was a rope. And even there was a now route when you just real quick, that doesn't work unless you have great velocity over there, and that was accurate. Some of the things Childs flashes is impressive in that entire first half. was really good on his behalf.
Second
Second half,
throwing on the run too. That one throw he had at tight end. He, like when his mechanics are right, he's got some real good ability.
and one of his incompletions was a counter boot roll, and I think somebody didn't. There was a receiver that was supposed to run a drag that didn't.
Yeah,
he wasn't available, so he just threw it out of bounds. So that incompletion was not on him. In the first half, he didn't throw one inaccurate pass. There's some incompletions, but it's because no one was there.
Yeah, Jonathan Smith said afterwards, he talked about in his post-game press conference, he felt like Aidan Chiles did a better job in this game than the other ones of throwing the ball away.
Yep.
And that's progress.
Then in the second half, it's 24-7, and then he has a problem that little middle screen where there's not much there, and he just kind of like jump balls it and throws it up. Lynch Adams really didn't have a chance to catch it, and Cody Simon, their middle linebacker, gets an interception. They rule it hit the ground, so it ends up not being an interception. You saw it, but just the decision there, it was like the old Mr. Hyde. Chiles on that one, and then the interception where he throws it it's supposed to be like a late leak to Velling, and he's not there, and he throws it just kind of hoping. I understand you're down 24-7. Maybe he's thinking, I got to make something happen. I think it might have been 31-7 at that point, I guess. But that was kind of like when Kirk Cousins used to try to throw it through a wall when they got down to, when the lead went to double digits and he thought he had to make a play. That's the Cousins as a sophomore. That's what he did, and eventually got rid of that, partly because his defenses got better. But Chiles, if he hadn't thrown those two passes and they still lose 38-7, might have been 31-7 without that interception, then from top to bottom, it's a complete winning game by Chiles. There might have been a play here and there in the run game where maybe he should have flipped to the other side of the line of scrimmage or to the other side of the line or something like that. But without those two passes, those two passes happened, and those two passes are still the bad, or the young part of Chiles, the mistake-prone portion of Chiles, which I thought in the first half he was doing a really good job managing, and I thought maybe he's grown out of it. You're never going to grow out of it completely. There's always going to be some errors in the most difficult position to play in sports, but without those two, I don't know what he was thinking, middle screens. Without those two, it was a really nice performance by him, but those two happened, so he's got more of those to try to iron out and get rid of.
He was thinking is, on one of those, it was the first drive of the second half that Michigan State got the ball first. They actually needed to make a play, and that's one of those things where, no, you don't. Did it make a difference? Did it make a difference in the outcome of the game? No, it didn't, because Michigan State was down by so much it wasn't going to matter. But those
in terms of grading Chiles where he is.
But those are the things that you have to continue to work on to eliminate with him. And the version of the first half version of Aidan Chiles is a dang good quarterback that can win a lot of games, but he has to continue to learn how to play within himself. And based on what I saw this week, against a team that is tough to play against a team that makes it a lot of quarterbacks that typically play within themselves not play within themselves, he took significant progress in my mind, because these guys are not easy to play against. I've seen a lot of really good Michigan State quarterbacks over the years, some guys that played in the NFL, guys like Brian Lewerke, look pretty terrible against these guys, against good versions of these. And there's a lot of other quarterbacks as well. So for Aidan Chiles to have the first half that he did, that's definitely something he can build on.
You know what I was thinking? It was 17-7. Michigan State's driving down there, and Chiles fumbles at the 16-yard line. And there's no face mask. When they're going after that fumble, I'm like, man, 17-7. There's 3 minutes left in the half. If they score here, and it's 17-14, and then they get the ball at the beginning of the second half, and then he fumbles, and then they miss the call. Okay, whatever. Ohio State gets the ball back, and Jordan Turner causes a fumble down there to the 20-yard line. There's about 2 minutes to go in the half. You know what I'm thinking? I'm like, they're going to score. It's going to be 17-14. They get the ball in the second half. They're going to go up. They can win this game. But they reverse that one. So Michigan State gets it. They punt it back to them. And even after there's a bad punt, it's the first punt of the game. You're playing Ohio State University, and you don't punt for the first 27 minutes of the game, and you're down 17-7. They're playing good football. Ohio State gets it back, and Jeremiah Smith makes those 2 circus catches, and they go up 24-7 at halftime. But with 2 minutes to go in the first half, I'm thinking Michigan State's got a chance to win this game. Ends up 38-7, and it deservedly so. Ohio State's the better team. But maybe, am I crazy? Were people thinking that? Were you guys thinking that? Michigan State is down 17-7, and they're like knocking on the door. You get it to 17-14. You get it to come out, and you have the ball to begin the second half. Of course, it would be a steep uphill climb to do it for 4 quarters. But all of a sudden, you've shortened the game to a 2-quarter game, and you're down 3 and you get the ball first. I'm thinking they got a chance to win. And, of course, they didn't. But I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but as I evaluate this team and where they are, they gave me a thought that they could win this game. I don't know if Ohio State people thought that for a moment or not, but Michigan State was in it.
Ohio State people wouldn't say that, but when Travion Henderson fumbled that football, where it was called a fumble, that was kind of,
those are the type of things that happen when you get upset, right?
Right. And so like if that like I wasn't thinking that Michigan State was going to win, but when that call was made,
I thought they could
until that was reversed, and then they marched on the field, and then they make a play. Like those are the kind of things, like if you're going to upset a team that's highly favored, you've got to have those.
Those got to go your way.
You can't not pick off the ball in the end zone when you get a chance to do it, and that's easy.
Yep.
That's an easy play. I've seen Malik Spencer do that. Do those kind of drills a million times in practice. He's a good football player, but you can't. The one thing about Ohio State, and the guys on both sides of the football said it all week, when talking about Ohio State, you cannot give them second chance opportunities. You can't give them an openings. They make you pay every single time, and that proved to be the case tonight.
Ohio State scored 2 touchdowns on 4th down plays.
Yeah, but that's been the case on some of the times we've seen Michigan State in some of these blowout games against Ohio State, where the defense is hold and serve. You get down and are doing well, making it hard for them, and then you get down inside gets down around the 40-yard line, and they convert a couple 4th downs, and that's the thing that's tough to stop with these guys. They've got so many different options, and Michigan State's done a really good job on 4th down, but you can't cover everything. And they've got a quarterback with some mobility. They've got tremendous receivers. They got the whole deal on offense.
It was Ohio State's first drive of the second half. It's 24-7, 4th and 5 at the 33-yard line. Michigan State came with a cover 1 blitz, man-to-man. They didn't play a lot of man-to-man, and you can't play man-to-man. Michigan State can't play man-to-man against Ohio State very often, and they knew that. And Jonathan Smith kind of alluded to that in the post-game press conference. He's like, then you bring some pressures and you play some man-to-man, and he didn't really finish his statement, but on that one it's man-to-man. And Nakai Martinez is at safety. He's up playing man-to-man on the number 3 receiver, which is Emeka Bupka. How do you say it? I don't know how to say it. Great player, number 2, great player. And it's man-to-man. They pick up the blitz, and it's a crossing route, and Martinez just can't run with him. He was kind of there, and he kind of went to try to knock it away, didn't quite get to it, and then Amarion Smith over the top just doesn't really have the speed to knock him out of the 7-yard line. They would have scored anyway, but 4th and 5, man-to-man blitz, and Michigan State did a good job with some zone pressures today. The interception by Jordan Turner was on a nice zone pressure. It looks like they're bringing more, ends up bringing 4, but people are dropping. Confused the quarterback a little bit, made that happen, but they were going to lose anyway. It was 24-7, but they rolled the dice a little bit with some man-to-man. But Michigan State, there's a ceiling to their talent, of course, and Nakai Martinez has played pretty well in some respects this year, but to really get up to where you can play against these teams in the top 5, you have to have some safeties that can run and cover and man-to-man against dragsters like these guys. And Ohio State's a different level when that happens.
Michigan State, you can even have guys that are NFL draft picks. I mean, and have a hard time with these guys. Yeah. There's been a lot of years. There's good safeties that have
There's NFL safeties.
I'm thinking about guys like Kyrie Willis or whatever, or some of the good safeties that Michigan State had over the years in the Antonio era. Well, Isaiah Lewis, Curtis Drummond. I mean, good football players. Kyrie Willis, good football player, had a good NFL career. He would have had a hard time. If you've got a number 3 receiver as good as Emeka Ibuka, lots of guys are going to have a hard time. And like you look at Washington's receiving corps last year.
Oof.
When you have those elite receiving corps that have 3 NFL guys out there, it is awfully hard for a safety to cover a guy that's going to be, a high-level draft pick.
Also, Henderson and Judkins, the running backs for Ohio State. Like I said, these are NFL players right now.
Judkins is better than Henderson.
Henderson had a 37-yarder, Dan. Nice little trap.
Better than Henderson.
Henderson can fly. Judkins
I like Henderson, but Judkins, he's got an edge to him.
He's a little bigger. He's like
nasty.
6'1", 218.
He's explosive.
I didn't realize he was that big. All right, so Henderson rushes for 69 yards. Judkins rushes for 54. If you tell me that before the game, I'm like, holy crap, Michigan State played some good run defense. They're in this game. And they kind of were. I mean, Ohio State ends up rushing for 185. Quarterback gets 14 and a couple of backup running backs. Well, Jeremiah Smith on a reverse gets a 19-yard touchdown. That's part of the rushing numbers. But Henderson only has 7 carries, and that's 69, so it's 9 per carry, 9 per attempt. But if you've watched these guys this year, of course it's against Akron and Western Michigan and Marshall, but those guys, they look like Usain Bolt taking off with 80-yard touchdown runs all the time. Michigan State did a good job keeping them bottled up and not allowing those 75-yard touchdown runs that they can put on you. All that being said, Ohio State still ends up with 485 total offense, and they throttle it down in the fourth quarter. But Michigan State played good defense, and they still give up 38 and giving up 480 yards. But the things you have to do to keep those two running backs bottled up all day bodes well when it comes time to play Iowa and some of these teams, maybe Michigan. Ohio State's defense, they've got really good individuals, and we talked about that in the VCast on Wednesday. But as I watched it more throughout the course of the week, I didn't think that collectively they played that great together. Like the touchdown to Jerron Glover, number one, their other corner comes over and doesn't quite make the play. I'm not sure Ohio State has the defense to really play with the best in the country. Their offense looks really good. But their defense, is their defense as good as Michigan's? Michigan State operated against this defense. Does that guarantee they'll be able to operate against Michigan? I don't think so. I think Michigan's defense might be better than Ohio State's. I don't know. So what does this mean for the rest of the season? A couple other things today. Boston College barely comes back to beat Western Kentucky. They didn't have Castellanos playing. Maryland got beat by Indiana. First of all, Michigan State, that's Michigan State's biggest win of the year thus far. I watched that game pretty closely today, and Indiana's good. Over 500 yards offense every single game this year, and their defense is pretty good. I don't know what they did to create a defense, and now Indiana leads the Big Ten in sacks, by the way. So Indiana, 5-0 for the first time since 1967. They were the team that Michigan State plays after this 4-game gauntlet. Well, guess what? It's a 6-game gauntlet now. I still count the game at Boston College as a gauntlet, then these 4, and then Indiana. So Maryland losing to Indiana, Boston College, Western Kentucky. I get that one. That's
a feather.
I'll discard that one.
It's a feather in the cap to Michigan State that their defense is starting to beat the crap out of people again. We're starting to see teams that play Michigan State the next week having a hard time. That's what we used to see under D'Antonio when those guys played well. And
State was sticking pretty good tonight. I mean, Henderson kind of got hurt a little bit on that fumble. Denson, the freshman, comes in as a safety and delivers a couple of hits. He did some things. And Rakeem Johnson played right guard at the end of the game. He started at left tackle. Stanton Ramil gets hurt, I assume, during practice this week. So all of a sudden we show up and we hear that Stanton Ramil's not available, and he made it the first start of his career last week against Boston College. So Michigan State in game number 5 started a 5th different offensive line. 5 games, 5 different offensive lines. Brandon Baldwin played right guard for the second straight week. He gave up a negative play on a 1st and 10 just before in the third quarter, just before that near interception. Baldwin's got to keep coming around because Rakeem Johnson's doing pretty good. And next week, if Ramil's back, I'm wondering if, are they knocking on the door to Rakeem Johnson becoming a new starter at right guard? I don't know. Lepo, I didn't watch closely to see what was going on there, but the offensive line, 5 different units. We knew that was an X factor and a question mark coming into the season. It's not a strength. But Michigan State's running backs, like I said, averaged 4.1 per carry today against a good defense with full of NFL players. I'm not sure how good they are collectively, but that's progress, even though it was a limited number of carries. Now they play Oregon. I was watching Oregon versus Oregon State. I watched the first quarter last night. Oregon State's defense, not good. The Jonathan Smith's former defensive coordinator is the new head coach at Oregon State. Now he's the head coach. I don't know who's coordinating the defense now, but not good.
They lost a lot of players.
Yeah, and not good. Oregon wins that game 48-14. It was competitive for a quarter. I haven't watched all of it. Oregon's good. That quarterback, Dylan Gabriel's good. We'll talk about that on Tuesday or so with the VCast next week. But it's real football. Michigan State's got real opponents, but the score's 38-7. But Michigan State was competitive today. Am I crazy?
No.
All right. Are you guys crazy?
Pretty much.
Are you crazy?
Those guys are crazy, the ones that text me during the game and think I'm going to respond to them. Yeah, I saw the fumble.
All right. Anything else, Paul?
No.
All right, for Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. Hey, I forgot. Give us a like on the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Go to SpartanMag.com. Become a subscriber. We'd love to have you over there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. Been watching the VCast from East Lansing, Spartan Stadium with the Spartans for SpartanMag.com.